China was helping the Chinese people, and China was also helping the rest of the world. The United States so far has not been as successful as China in arresting this problem. So I think in the case of China, after a few mistakes initially made in Wuhan, subsequently China came down very hard and was able to use very strong measures to arrest the development of COVID-19. And by arresting the development of COVID-19, China was helping the Chinese people, and China was also helping the rest of the world. The United States so far has not been as successful as China in arresting this problem, but nonetheless, the United States is fighting very hard to try and stop it. Well, I think India is also struggling against the pandemic situation. But India, like China, is fortunate that it has a strong leader in Prime Minister Narendra Modi. And he was very brave in calling for a total lockdown of such a big country at very short notice. And in the case of the West, one mistake the West has made, especially the Anglo-Saxon countries, is that as a result of the Reagan-Thatcher revolution, especially when President Ronald Reagan said, government is not the solution, government is the problem. So the Anglo-Saxon countries began to believe that markets would solve everything and government should do less and less. So I think what we have learned so far from the COVID-19 crisis is the wisdom of a statement made by a Nobel laureate, Amartya Sen, who said for societies to succeed, they must have the invisible hand of free markets and the visible hand of good governance. So you must have two hands, not one hand. So the mistake that many Anglo-Saxon countries made is that they emphasized the free markets, they didn't emphasize good governance. So sadly, as I document in my book, Has China Won, the US has allowed several public agencies to become weaker and weaker because they have not been funded, the people have been demoralized, and so that's a mistake. So I believe that after COVID-19, countries will realize the importance of strengthening good governance domestically also. So I think that will be a clear lesson from COVID-19. The main criteria of good governance is whether or not you're improving the livelihood and well-being of your citizens. So if you are doing so, and not just your citizens, but especially the bottom 50%, the poorer people in your society. And here, sadly, one statistic I cite in my book, Has China Won, is that the United States is the only major developed society where the average income of the bottom 50% went down over a 30-year period. And of course, by contrast, the average income of the bottom 50% in China has gone up significantly over the last 30 to 40 years. And it's possible that the improvement of the standard of living of the bottom 50% in China has probably been the best in the past 30 years over the past 3,000, 4,000 years. So this is the criteria by which you use to decide whether or not there's good governance in a society. We should support it because the people at the bottom, we must remember, are the people who live at the edge.